Have you ever wondered why the hardest parts of aging aren't the ones you were warned about? Have you noticed how aging sneaks in, not just through aches and pains, but through unexpected corners of your daily life? And have you ever caught yourself thinking, why didn't anyone tell me it would feel like this? The truth is, after you turn 70, aging doesn't just reveal itself in your joints or your fading memory. It shows up quietly, in surprising ways. Ways that shift how you move through your day, how you connect with others, and even how you sit with your own thoughts during quiet moments. In this video, we're diving deep into the 7 hardest parts of growing older after 70. And no, this isn't the stuff you read in health brochures. It's not just about physical changes either. We're talking about the emotional shifts, the social changes, and those deeply personal moments that no one really warns you about. These are the challenges that test your patience, tug at your heart, and sometimes leave you quietly wondering, am I the only one feeling this? What you'll hear today isn't meant to scare you. In fact, it's meant to bring comfort by naming the feelings you've likely experienced, but maybe kept tucked away, unspoken. And something powerful happens when we finally named these feelings. They start to feel a little lighter. Because the moment we truly understand what we're facing, we also stop feeling so alone in it. So, stick with me until the very end, because as tough as these challenges can be, they also reveal a unique kind of quiet strength, one that only people like you, who have lived through so many seasons of life, can fully understand. Let's begin. Number 1. Physical decline becomes something you can actually feel. There comes a moment, sometimes it's subtle, sometimes it hits you suddenly, when you realize your body no longer bounces back the way it used to. Maybe it's a sharp twinge when you reach for something. Maybe it's that brief pause you need after standing up from a chair. After 70, those little moments begin to stack up. And the truth is, no matter how much you try to stay active or eat right, your body begins to speak in ways you can't ignore anymore. The physical part of aging feels completely different when it finally arrives. It's not just about slower steps or stiffer joints anymore. It's the deeper realization that strength now takes more effort than it once did. Suddenly, your sense of balance feels a little less steady, and simple things you never even thought about before, now demand more caution and more attention. Standing on one foot to put on a sock becomes a task that requires real focus. Walking across a wet floor isn't just about speed. It's about careful steps and heightened awareness. Sometimes it almost feels as if your body has quietly downgraded itself and no one warned you it was coming. I remember hearing about a man named George, who was 75 at the time. He had always taken great pride in his independence. He once shared, "I used to shovel snow like it was nothing, but last winter, after just 5 minutes, I had to sit down." Strangely enough, it wasn't the physical weakness that weighed on him the most. What struck him harder was the emotional realization, that unsettling moment when you understand you can't depend on your body the way you always have. He described it perfectly. It's like finding out a friend you've trusted your whole life suddenly stops showing up. And that's exactly how many people feel. It's not quite betrayal, but rather the shock of how swiftly things can change. Those stairs you've climbed for decades now make you hesitate. The burst of energy that used to fuel your mornings doesn't last throughout the day anymore. These changes aren't dramatic. They creep in slowly, but they don't go away. Your pace becomes more measured. Your grip feels a little weaker. Your size might subtly shift in ways that catch you off guard. What makes this stage of life so difficult isn't just the physical change, it's the contrast. In your heart and mind, you still feel young and vibrant, but your body doesn't always keep up. That gap between how you feel inside and what your body allows can be confusing, even quietly frustrating or embarrassing. But here's an important truth. Feeling these changes doesn't make you weak. It makes you human, and you are far from alone. Everyone who reaches this stage of life faces this same reality. The key isn't to fight against it. It's to face it with grace and understanding. The key isn't to push back against these changes, but rather to adjust with them. It's about moving at a pace that suits you now, allowing yourself to stretch a bit longer and listening closely to the messages your body is sending. This isn't about giving up, it's about adapting with grace and wisdom. And honestly, that's where real strength begins to shine through. Number 2, facing the loss of people more often than you ever expected. One of the hardest parts of growing older isn't what happens within your own body. It's what starts happening around you. Friends you've known for decades begin to drift away. A neighbor you used to chat with regularly might move into assisted living. Someone you used to call every week just stops answering the phone one day. And sometimes, those losses cut even deeper. In the beginning, it might be just a few here and there, but after 70, it becomes more frequent, more expected. Yet no matter how prepared you think you are, it never feels normal. Losing someone who's been part of your life always stings in a place that never fully hardens. I once heard about a woman named Elaine, who was 79, when her best friend of over 40 years passed away. She told me, "I've lost people before, but this one was different. She was my memory, the only person who remembered the version of me that no longer exists." That kind of grief runs deeper than simple sadness. It's the aching realization that you've lost a part of your own story, as if a small piece of yourself quietly vanished along with them. And it's not just death that brings these losses. Sometimes it's dementia, sometimes it's physical distance, and other times it's the slow fading of people you care about as they drift out of your daily life without meaning to. Suddenly, the house feels quieter. The phone rings less often. The calendar that was once filled with familiar faces now has more empty spaces. What makes this stage so challenging isn't just the loneliness, it's the unpredictability of it all. You never know when the next phone call might bring difficult news. You don't know when another chair at your dinner table will suddenly sit empty. Even when you try to brace yourself, grief has a way of sneaking up from unexpected places, through an old song, a familiar scent, or a photo tucked away in a drawer you forgot about. And here's the truth, there's no easy fix for this kind of heartache. But simply naming it helps, because you're not fragile or weak for feeling this way. You're human. If you've lived beyond 70, chances are you've experienced more loss than most people could imagine. And that quiet bravery, the strength it takes to keep going, to keep remembering, and to keep loving despite those losses, that's a kind of courage not everyone understands. If you're still here, watching this video and finding these reflections meaningful, I invite you to leave a comment with the words "number 2" below. It lets me know you're here, that you're listening, and that these words are resonating with you. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to do so and turn on the notification bell. That way, you won't miss future videos like this, videos meant to inform, comfort, and inspire. Your support truly helps us continue sharing thoughtful content for viewers like you. Now, let's continue. Number 3, feeling emotionally distant from your own family. This shift often happens slowly, almost without warning. You raise your children, you stand by them, you support them through every season of life. You stay close, holding on as long as you can. But somewhere along the way, you start to notice something has changed. The phone doesn't ring as often as it once did. Visits become fewer and far between. Conversations feel rushed, always squeezed between busy schedules. And the grandkids? They seem to be growing up in a world that feels more foreign, more separate from yours, almost like they're living in a different universe. It's not that your children don't love you. It's not that you've done anything wrong. It's just life. Everyone is moving through their own routines, their own struggles. But knowing that doesn't always make it easier. For many people after 70, this quiet, widening emotional distance becomes one of the most painful and unexpected parts of aging. What makes it even harder is that it often hides behind good manners and polite words. You'll hear things like, "We'll stop by soon," or "We've just been so busy lately." And of course you understand. You remember what it was like to juggle work, children, errands, and everything else life demanded. But still, you miss them. You miss feeling needed. You miss being asked for advice, being included in the everyday details, even the smallest ones. I once heard about a man named Thomas who was 82. He told me something that stayed with me. I raised 3 kids. I helped with down payments. I watched their children. I fixed their cars. Now, if I'm lucky, I see them maybe once a month. He wasn't angry or bitter, just quiet, a little weary. And then he said something that struck a chord. I used to be the center of their world. Now, I feel like a side note. That kind of emotional gap isn't something people see from the outside. It's not something you talk about openly because you don't want to make anyone feel guilty or uncomfortable. But inside, it lingers. It shows up in unexpected ways, making holidays feel a little emptier, birthdays a little quieter, and ordinary days a little heavier, like something's missing, even if you can't quite put it into words. But here's the truth. Your value hasn't vanished. It hasn't diminished. It hasn't aged away. What's really changed is the pace of life around you, not the importance of who you are. Life moves quickly. Yee. And though you might not regain the closeness you once had with your family, there are still ways to build small, meaningful bridges. A simple handwritten note, a photo sent through the mail. These small gestures aren't about chasing after their attention. They're gentle reminders that you're still here, still loving them, still paying attention. The hardest part isn't simply being alone. It's that feeling of being forgotten. But even as the world speeds past, your presence still carries weight. It still matters, more than they say out loud, and often far more than they even realize. Number 4, watching the world you knew slowly disappear. There comes a moment, usually sometime after 70, when you look around and suddenly realize that everything just feels different. The familiar streets you once walked every day don't look the same. The corner store where you used to chat with the owner closed down years ago. The park where your children once played has been replaced by towering buildings and new developments. Even the music has changed. The words people use have shifted. And somehow, even their tone of voice feels unfamiliar. It's not simply nostalgia. It's a deeper kind of grief. The grief for a world that once felt steady and familiar. The grief for the routines and rhythms that shaped your life. The grief for a way of living that made sense to you. For many older adults, this shift isn't just disorienting, it's deeply unsettling. I once sat with a woman named Margaret, who was 83 at the time. She said something that has stayed with me ever since. Everywhere I go, I feel like a stranger in a place that used to feel like home. That kind of quiet disconnection doesn't always shout, but it lingers. It shows up in unexpected places, like standing in the grocery store, listening to songs you've never heard before, surrounded by trends you don't recognize. It's there when you walk down a street and notice that people pass by without even making eye contact. It even seeps into your neighborhood, where faces, languages, and customs begin to change faster than you can adjust to them. What makes this change especially difficult is that you remember a different pace, a time when neighbors knew one another, when doors stayed unlocked, and when people answered their phones just to chat. And while progress isn't necessarily bad, it can sometimes feel like your memories are being erased, paved over by new buildings, new apps, and new slang words, one by one. It's a quiet kind of loss, but it cuts deep. Because when the world around you begins to feel unfamiliar, it can make you feel invisible, like the life you lived, your wisdom, your experiences, and your personal history no longer have a place in the current picture. But still, you miss them. You miss feeling needed. You miss being asked for advice, being included in the everyday details, even the smallest ones. I once heard about a man named Thomas who was 82. He told me something that stayed with me. I raised 3 kids. I helped with down payments. I watched their children. I fixed their cars. Now, if I'm lucky, I see them maybe once a month. He wasn't angry or bitter, just quiet, a little weary. And then he said something that struck a chord. I used to be the center of their world. Now, I feel like a side note. That kind of emotional gap isn't something people see from the outside. It's not something you talk about openly because you don't want to make anyone feel guilty or uncomfortable. But inside, it lingers. It shows up in unexpected ways, making holidays feel a little emptier, birthdays a little quieter, and ordinary days a little heavier, like something's missing, even if you can't quite put it into words. But here's the truth. Your value hasn't vanished. It hasn't diminished. It hasn't aged away. What's really changed is the pace of life around you, not the importance of who you are. Life moves quickly. Bees. And though you might not regain the closeness you once had with your family, there are still ways to build small, meaningful bridges. A simple handwritten note, a photo sent through the mail. These small gestures aren't about chasing after their attention. They're gentle reminders that you're still here, still loving them, still paying attention. The hardest part isn't simply being alone. It's that feeling of being forgotten. But even as the world speeds past, your presence still carries weight. It still matters. More than they say out loud, and often far more than they even realize. Number 4. Watching the world you knew slowly disappear. There comes a moment, usually sometime after 70, when you look around and suddenly realize that everything just feels different. The familiar streets you once walked every day don't look the same. The corner store where you used to chat with the owner closed down years ago. The park where your children once played has been replaced by towering buildings and new developments. Even the music has changed. The words people use have shifted, and somehow, even their tone of voice feels unfamiliar. It's not simply nostalgia. It's a deeper kind of grief, the grief for a world that once felt steady and familiar, the grief for the routines and rhythms that shaped your life, the grief for a way of living that made sense to you. For many older adults, this shift isn't just disorienting, it's deeply unsettling. I once sat with a woman named Margaret, who was 83 at the time. She said something that has stayed with me ever since. Everywhere I go, I feel like a stranger in a place that used to feel like home. That kind of quiet disconnection doesn't always shout, but it lingers. It shows up in unexpected places, like standing in the grocery store, listening to songs you've never heard before, surrounded by trends you don't recognize. It's there when you walk down a street and notice that people pass by without even making eye contact. It even seeps into your neighborhood, where faces, languages, and customs begin to change faster than you can adjust to them. What makes this change especially difficult is that you remember a different pace, a time when neighbors knew one another, when doors stayed unlocked, and when people answered their phones just to chat. And while progress isn't necessarily bad, it can sometimes feel like your memories are being erased, paved over by new buildings, new apps, and new slang words, one by one. It's a quiet kind of loss, but it cuts deep. Because when the world around you begins to feel unfamiliar, it can make you feel invisible, like the life you lived, your wisdom, your experiences, and your personal history no longer have a place in the current picture. Aging doesn't strip away your worth, but it does ask you to slow down, to move through life with more care, more thoughtfulness, and more patience. And if that slower pace frustrates you from time to time, that's completely natural. You've earned the right to feel that frustration. Just don't let it take away your dignity, because your dignity remains fully intact. It's yours, always. Every step you take, every creative solution you discover, every small victory you claim, those are still yours to celebrate. Number 6, managing constant medical appointments and the endless worries about your health. After 70, your calendar often starts to fill up with a different kind of commitment. Doctor visits, lab tests, follow-up exams. Some weeks, it can almost feel like the waiting room at the hospital knows you better than your own living room. And it's not just the hours spent sitting there, it's the mental weight of it all. Keeping track of everything, trying to make sense of complicated information, wondering what's coming next. Even when the news isn't urgent, it feels heavy, because every appointment is a subtle reminder. A reminder that your body now needs constant monitoring, that your blood pressure, your cholesterol, your heart rate, your very numbers are always under scrutiny. There's always another test, another referral, another issue to watch. The peace of mind you once had about your health starts to feel like a distant memory, a luxury you didn't even know you were enjoying back then. And it's not just about the checkups themselves, it's the long list of medications, the endless side effects to keep track of, the growing piles of paperwork, the confusing moments when one doctor says one thing and another tells you something completely different. Suddenly, you're not just a patient, you've become a part-time secretary for your own body. You're writing down symptoms, keeping records, asking the right questions, trying your best not to forget even the smallest detail. I once heard from a woman named Irene, who was 80. She told me something that speaks to so many in this stage of life. I feel like I spend more time in waiting rooms now than I do with my grandchildren. She wasn't angry, just tired. It wasn't simply the long hours that wore her down. It was the emotional weight of it. Every visit seemed to bring a new concern, a new prescription, a new decision to make. That constant state of vigilance can wear anyone down, even those who've always been strong and resilient. Even if you're deeply grateful for the medical care you receive, it still takes a toll. Because it's not just about surviving. It's about trying to live fully while also managing what can sometimes feel like a never-ending cycle of appointments, treatments, and health worries. It almost feels like managing your health becomes a full-time job, just staying on top of everything, staying upright, staying steady. And yet, through all of it, you keep showing up. You take your medications, you ask the right questions, you follow the doctor's instructions, and you keep going. But the reason you do it isn't just because you have to. It's because, deep down, you still care deeply about being here. You still care about showing up, about being present, about making the most of every single moment of the time you've been given. There's a quiet determination inside you, a fierce desire to keep living fully, even when life demands more from you than ever before. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights meaningful, please take a moment to comment number 6 below to let me know you're here, walking this journey with me. And if you haven't yet subscribed, I invite you to do so. And remember to turn on the notification bell so you don't miss future videos. Your support truly helps us continue to create thoughtful, meaningful content designed to inform, encourage, and inspire. Now, let's keep going. Number 7. Feeling invisible in a world that moves too fast. Perhaps the hardest part of aging, the part that cuts deeper than physical pain, deeper than loss, and even deeper than constant medical worries, is the quiet, unsettling realization that the world no longer sees you the same way it once did. You're still here. You're still thinking, still feeling, still filled with stories, memories, and wisdom. But somehow, people begin to look past you. Strangers pass you on the sidewalk without a glance. Sales clerks barely make eye contact, often talking over you as if you weren't even there. Doctors hurry through your questions, rushing through appointments as though your concerns are trivial. Younger people assume you don't understand their world or their way of thinking. You start to feel it, sometimes in tiny ways, sometimes in moments that hit you like a wave. That sense that your presence simply doesn't carry the same weight it once did. It's not loud. It's not cruel. It's subtle. It's quiet. A soft kind of social fading that happens almost without warning. And you begin to ask yourself, often silently, am I still seen? Am I still valued? Not just by your family or your lifelong friends, but by the world around you. I once heard from a man named Bill, who was 77. He said something that captures this feeling perfectly. It's not that people are mean, they're just busy. And somewhere along the way, he said, he just stopped being someone people noticed. He wasn't longing for attention. It wasn't about wanting to be praised or admired. He simply missed being acknowledged, being asked what he thought, being spoken to directly, rather than being talked over or ignored altogether. That kind of hurt doesn't stem from pride. It comes from something far deeper, something almost universal. Deep down, every one of us wants to feel like we still matter, that we still belong, that we are still connected to the world around us. We want to believe that all the years we've lived, all the lessons we've learned, and all the experiences we've gathered haven't somehow vanished just because our hair has turned white or our steps have slowed. But let me tell you this, And I mean it with every word. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. What you carry within you, your wisdom, your resilience, your patience, your stories, it's needed now more than ever. And even if the world doesn't always recognize it, even if others sometimes fail to see it, that doesn't diminish its value one bit. Sometimes being seen again starts with how you carry yourself. Speak up, share your stories, take up space, not out of anger or defiance, but out of quiet dignity. Because you've earned that space, you've earned that voice. And no one, not time, not age, not the noise of the world, has the right to take it from you. You are still here. You are still worthy of being heard. You are still important. That truth doesn't fade. It doesn't retire. And it certainly doesn't grow old. Final thoughts. Getting older isn't just about counting birthdays. It's not just a number on paper. It's a series of quiet reckonings, moments that slowly reshape how you see yourself and the world around you. You wake up one morning and notice that your body moves differently than it used to. The phone doesn't ring as often. The places that once brought you comfort, your favorite shops, your familiar parks, are gone. The faces you counted on have become fewer. And sometimes, the rhythm of life feels like it's moving just a little faster than you can keep up with. And yet, through every one of those changes, you're still here, still adapting, still finding ways to show up, no matter what. In this video, we've explored 7 of the hardest parts of growing older after 70. How your body changes in unexpected ways, how loss becomes a more frequent visitor, how your family sometimes feels a little more distant than before. We've explored the quiet grief that comes with watching the world change around you. We've talked about the frustration of struggling with once simple tasks that now take more effort. We've walked through the exhausting cycle of medical appointments and health worries. And we've faced what might be the hardest truth of all, feeling invisible in a world that seems to speed right past you. But here's something else that's just as true, and it deserves to be said out loud. The very fact that you're here right now, watching, listening, reflecting, and still growing, speaks volumes about your resilience. It shows your deep inner strength, the kind that can't be seen at a glance, but runs through everything you do. Aging may bring many challenges, but it also has a way of revealing something powerful. It strips away the noise, the distractions, and all the outside expectations, leaving behind what truly lasts: your endurance, your wisdom, and your steady, unwavering spirit. So, let me ask you, of all the parts we've talked about today, which one struck you the most? Which one made you pause, nod in agreement, or feel just a little less alone in your journey? I encourage you to leave a comment below and share your thoughts, because sometimes knowing that someone else understands what you're going through, that's where real healing begins. You've lived through more than most people can even imagine. And yet, here you are, still growing, still adapting, still learning with grace. That's not weakness. That's quiet, dignified power. And it's something to be proud of. Thank you for spending your time with us today. We'd truly love to hear from you. Please take a moment to leave a comment below and share one thing you've learned from this video, and how you plan to carry that lesson into your life moving forward. Your voice matters, and your words bring us great encouragement and inspiration. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share it with others. Your support helps us continue creating meaningful content to inform, uplift, and inspire. Wishing you continued health, happiness, and peace, and remember to subscribe to our channel for more. Take care and stay well.